Today, every word of yours is a test. It can open wounds, or it can open portals of healing. There is no middle ground. The sky today presents us with one of the most intimate and revealing confrontations of the zodiac. Mercury, the planet of our mind and our voice, in the relational sign of Libra, faces Chiron head-on, the wounded healer, in the sign of the eye, Aries. This is not a battle of distant planets. It is an echo of the conflict that lives within each of us. It is the confrontation between our need to communicate and to relate. Mercury in Libra, and our deepest wound about our right to exist and to assert ourselves. Chiron in Aries, and the battlefield where this war unfolds is our word. Every sentence we utter today, every silence we choose, is charged with the energy of this tension. Our voice becomes a double-edged tool, used without consciousness. From our own pain, it becomes a sword, capable of reopening old wounds in ourselves and in others. But used with intention, with compassion, and with the courage to express a truth that heals, it becomes the remedy, the balm that can close scars we have carried for years. Today does not tolerate neutrality in our communication. What we will do together is learn to navigate this test. We will understand the weight and the power of our words and how to use them to build bridges instead of walls. Before we begin, let us anchor our power. Declare right now in the comments, "I am the owner of my voice." With this declaration, you reclaim your sovereignty over your most powerful tool. And now, let us learn to use it. Today, the arena of our spiritual test is our communication. The opposition between Mercury and Chiron creates a field of high energetic tension, and our voice is the wire that conducts this electricity. Think about this. Every word you utter today is charged with a weight and a potency far above normal. There are no neutral conversations, no harmless comments. The universe today is listening to every syllable, not just as sound, but as a decree, a signature, an act of creation. Today, your word is worth gold, and like any treasure, it must be used with the utmost consciousness and responsibility. Let's delve deeper into this idea. Normally, our words are like stones thrown into a river. They create a small ripple and are carried away by the current. Today, the river of time is still. Every word you throw is like a stone falling into a perfectly mirrored lake, and its ripples expand clearly, affecting the entire landscape. It is not about grand speeches, but about small phrases that can change destinies. A simple "I trust you," said with sincerity, can be the bridge that heals a fractured relationship. "Oh, this is not acceptable to me," said with a calm firmness, can be the wall that finally establishes a boundary your soul was asking for. An "I give up," said today, can carry the finality of a last will, closing a door irrevocably. Why this potency? Because our voice, Mercury in Libra, is directly touching our deepest wound, Chiron in Aries. Our communication is not just an exchange of ideas, it is a direct interaction with our pain and our healing. The wound of Chiron in Aries is about our right to exist, to feel valid, to be ourselves. Today, every word we say or hear has the power to touch this primordial wound. A word of criticism can feel like an attack on our very existence. A word of recognition can be felt as the deepest healing. That is why your voice becomes your tool of power or your weapon of destruction. You have, today, the ability to use your words to validate the existence of the other, to make them feel seen and honored, and in that act, to heal your own need to be validated. Or from your own pain, you can use words to diminish, to criticize, to hurt, reenacting your own trauma. The choice is yours in every sentence. The invitation of today is for you to become a master of your own communication, for you to treat every word as a treasure, knowing that it has the power to build or to destroy, to imprison or to liberate. After we understand the immense power and value that our word carries today, we must have the courage to look at its shadow side. If the word can be gold, it can also be poison. If it can be an instrument of healing, it can also be the sharpest of swords. The opposition between Mercury and Chiron does not only show us our potential for conscious communication, it illuminates, with an uncomfortable clarity, our capacity to use the word to wound. Today, our voice can become an invisible sword, capable of cutting, of dividing, and of exposing the deepest frailties, both in others and in ourselves. To understand this mechanism is not an act of pessimism, it is an act of profound responsibility. Where does this capacity to wound come from? It is born from our own pain. Remember, today's opposition directly activates our primordial wound, Chiron in Aries. When we are not conscious of this wound, our feeling of not being good enough, our fear of not being seen, our anger for not feeling valid, our communication, Mercury, becomes its spokesperson, and a wound that speaks rarely speaks with kindness. It speaks with the language of pain, criticism, sarcasm, accusation, the word that diminishes. Today, pay attention. Every time a sharp word comes out of your mouth, every time you feel the impulse to use your intelligence to win an argument or to put someone in their place, know that it is not your adult self speaking, it is your wound screaming. How can the word cut, divide, and expose frailties? It does so in subtle and devastating ways. The cut can be a sarcastic comment that, under the guise of a joke, hits someone's deepest insecurity. The division can be the word of gossip that breaks the trust between two people. The exposure of frailties can be the act of using intimate information, which was entrusted to you in vulnerability, as a weapon in a moment of conflict. Each of these acts is your pain, trying to relieve itself by creating pain in the other. It is a desperate attempt to feel stronger by making the other weaker. But herein lies the great spiritual lesson of this chapter. This is already a spiritual act, not in the sense of being good, but in the sense of being revealing. Every time we use the word as a sword, the universe is giving us a precise diagnosis of our own wound. The person or the situation that awakens in us the desire to attack is a mirror that shows us exactly where our healing has not yet happened. The sharp word we utter is in fact a cry for help from our own soul. The invitation today is not to judge yourself for having this sword in your hand, as we all have it. The invitation is to recognize it. It is to, in the moment you feel the impulse to cut, stop, breathe, and have the courage to look within and ask, what pain of mine is trying to speak now? After we have had the courage to look at our word as a sword, at our capacity to wound from our own pain, the opposition between Mercury and Chiron offers us its most sublime gift. The function of this transit is not just to show us our wound, it is to hand us the remedy. And the remedy today is born in the exact same place as the poison, in our mouth. The same voice that has the power to cut has the power to stitch. The same communication that can reopen a wound can be the balm that begins its healing. Today is the day we discover that our word is not just a tool of expression, but one of the most potent healing tools we possess. It is here that we need to understand the essence of the Chiron archetype. Chiron is not just our wound, he is the wounded healer. His wisdom is born precisely from his own pain. Because he knows pain in depth, he becomes the master of healing. And the deepest lesson of Chiron is that our own healing rarely happens in isolation. It happens in connection, in the act of using our experience to alleviate the suffering of another. Today, our voice, Mercury, has the power to align with this energy of Chiron. And how does that happen? It happens when we speak with truth and compassion. Think of the power of a sincere apology, not a sorry if you felt offended, but a I am sorry. I was in pain and my words were a weapon. I recognize the impact they had on you. This is the word that heals. It is the communication that takes responsibility, that validates the other's feeling, and that breaks the cycle of accusation and defense. By doing this, you are not just healing the other's wound, you are healing your own. You are demonstrating to yourself that you are no longer a slave to your reactivity, but a conscious master of your communication. Think of the power of a word of validation. How many times in our haste to solve a problem do we minimize the other's feeling? Today, your word can be a sanctuary. Instead of saying, "Don't be like that," try saying, "I see that you are suffering. I am here to listen to you." This is the word that heals. It is the communication that does not try to fix, but that simply offers presence and welcoming. By doing this, you are offering the other what your own wound, Chiron in Aries, most longs for: the recognition of its right to feel, to exist, to be. And by offering it, you receive it back. And think of the power of the word of compassionate truth spoken to yourself. Look at your own wound, at your own pain, that led you to use the word as a sword. Instead of judging yourself, try speaking to yourself with the same compassion you would offer a friend. I recognize your pain. I see your fear. It is okay. We are learning. This is the word that heals. It is your own voice, becoming the balm for your own wound. Today, in every interaction, you have this choice. You can use your voice to perpetuate the pain or to transform it. The test of the word is not just about what we say to others. It is about discovering that when our word is born from truth and compassion, it becomes the remedy that has the power to heal the world, starting with ourselves. After we have explored the power of the word as a sword and as a remedy, today's test presents us with its most subtle and at times most difficult lesson: the wisdom of silence. Our mind, ruled by Mercury, has an almost compulsive impulse to fill the void with words. We believe that communication is always the solution, that speaking is always the path to clarity. But the opposition to Chiron today invites us to question this belief. What if the most powerful answer is not a sentence, but a pause? What if the healing is not in what we say, but in what we consciously choose not to say? It is crucial that we make a distinction here. The silence of which we speak is not the silence of omission or of fear, the swallowing of toads that sickens us from the inside. That is the silence of the victim. The silence that today's test invites us to practice is the silence of the sovereign. It is a chosen silence, not an imposed one. It is an act of power, not of powerlessness. It is the conscious decision not to waste your precious words on ground that is not fertile, not to give your energy to a battle that is not yours, or not to try to explain your truth to someone who has already decided not to listen. Think of this in a practical way. Today, you may find yourself in a situation where you are provoked, where someone tries to pull you into an argument. Your Chiron in Aries wound may want to react, to assert your I, to fight to be right. Your Mercury in Libra may want to negotiate, to justify, to find an agreement. But your deeper wisdom may ask for silence. Silence, in this case, is not submission. It is a declaration. It is saying without words, "My peace is more important than the need to be right." Or, "This argument is beneath my frequency. I will not participate." This silence is a boundary, a force field that protects your energy. Another powerful form of silence is that of listening. Often, In our haste to heal with our words, to give advice, to fix the other, we forget that the greatest act of healing is simply to listen. Today, if someone comes to you with their pain, try to resist the impulse to speak. Instead, offer the gift of your attentive silence. Offer the space for the other person to be able to hear themselves. Often, the healing the other is looking for is not in your answer, but in your silence that gives them permission to find their own answer. This is the silence of the wounded healer, who knows that true healing is an internal process. The most powerful silence of all, however, is the one you offer to yourself. It is the pause before you react. It is the space you create between the trigger and your response. In that silence, you have the opportunity to ask yourself, this word I'm about to say, does it come from my wisdom or from my wound? Will it build or will it destroy? To choose silence today is the act of mastery that allows us to differentiate between a reaction and a response. It is the practice that ensures that when we choose to speak, our word is no longer a sword or a reactive remedy, but a pure and conscious expression of our sovereignty. After we have explored the word as a sword, as a remedy, and silence as an act of power, we arrive at the final layer of understanding about today's energy. The opposition between Mercury and Chiron is not just a momentary test, it is a judgment. Not a moral judgment of right or wrong coming from an external entity, but an invisible and energetic judgment, where the universe itself acts as a tribunal. And what is being judged is the integrity of our communication. Today, more than on any other day, the universe weighs every word as a contract, and the sentence of this judgment will define the quality of our relational harvest in the future. Think of this as the law of the echo, but at an accelerated speed and with a relentless precision. The energy of Mercury in Libra, the sign of agreements and of justice, combined with the karmic sensitivity of Chiron, creates a field where every word we emit is recorded, stamped, and returned to us in the same currency. There is no escape. Today's energy demands a balancing of the accounts in our communicational accounting. If today you use your word as a sword, if you project your pain onto others through criticism, sarcasm, or accusation, you are signing a karmic contract. The universe registers this vibration of attack, and, by the law of resonance, will bring you back more situations of conflict, more people who hurt you with their words, more dynamics where you will feel attacked. The sword you throw today is the same one that will wound you tomorrow. Not as a punishment, but as a lesson. The universe will mirror your own energy back to you until you learn to heal the wound that makes you attack. On the other hand, if today you use your word as a remedy, if you choose the path of compassion, of validation, of an honesty that heals instead of wounds, you are also signing a contract. The universe registers this vibration of healing and will bring you more of the same. More relationships based on listening and on mutual respect. More people who treat you with the same compassion that you offer. More situations where your voice is received not as a threat, but as a gift. The healing you offer today is the same that you will receive tomorrow, and the same applies to silence. If your silence is that of omission, the silence of fear that allows an injustice to continue, the contract you sign is that of powerlessness. The universe will continue to bring you situations where your voice is needed, but where you feel unable to use it, until the pain of silencing yourself becomes greater than the fear of speaking. But if your silence is that of the sovereign, the silence that protects your peace and refuses to feed the drama, the contract you sign is that of mastery. and the universe will reward you with more serenity, with fewer unnecessary conflicts, with the peace that is born from wisdom. Today's judgment is, therefore, automatic. There is no external judge. We are our own judges, and our communication is our own sentence. Every word, every silence is a vote we cast, an instruction we send to the quantum field. And the universe, like a perfect mirror, just returns the reflection to us. After we have journeyed through the anatomy of the word as gold, as a sword, and as a remedy, and after we have explored the wisdom of silence and the karmic weight of our communication, we arrive at the final point, at the portal. The opposition between Mercury and Chiron is not a passive event to be observed. It is a crossroads that demands a decision. Today's energy, in every interaction, in every conversation, in every thought we formulate, places us before a portal of choice. It is a moment of sovereignty where we are forced to consciously decide what kind of communicational force we will be in the world. All of us, throughout this day, will have a moment of choice. It will not necessarily be a great dramatic event. It could be a subtle moment, almost imperceptible to the outside world, but one that our soul will recognize as the final test. It could be in the response we give to a provocative email, in the way we react to a criticism, in the choice of words we use to express a need to a loved one. It will be the moment when our Chiron wound is activated and our Mercury voice is called to respond. And the choice is simple, binary, and without a middle ground. On one side of the portal is the reaction. It is the path of the sword. It is allowing our pain to speak for us, allowing our need to defend ourselves and to be right, to be stronger than our desire to connect. It is using our intelligence to hurt, to diminish, to prove a point. It is a choice that, in the short term, may give our ego a sense of victory, but that, in the long term, only deepens our own wound and imprisons us in the cycle of pain. On the other side of the portal is the response. It is the path of the remedy. It is the choice, at the exact moment our wound is activated, to take a deep breath and to access our wisdom, our compassion. It is to choose a word that validates instead of one that accuses. It is to choose the silence that protects instead of the word that attacks. It is to use our voice not to prove that we are right, but to try to heal the fracture in the communication. It is a choice that requires immense inner strength, the strength to place healing above the ego. This is the portal. At every moment today, you are before it, and your choice will not just define the quality of your day. The word you choose to emit, that of the wound or that of the healing, is the karmic seed that will define the quality of the relationships you will harvest in the future. The test of the word is, in its essence, the test of your own heart. The journey through the most revealing day of our communication comes to an end. Today, we looked at our voice and saw it as it truly is, a tool of absolute power, capable of creating and of destroying, of wounding and of healing. We understood that our words carry a weight of gold, but that when spoken from our pain, they become an invisible sword. And most importantly, we discovered that when we speak with truth and compassion, our voice becomes the remedy that has the power to heal ourselves and the world. We have crossed the portal of choice, the final test between reaction and response, between the wound and the healing. The confrontation between Mercury and Chiron was not a punishment. It was a graduation. It was the opportunity to become masters of our own communication, to cease being slaves to our reactivity, and to become the sovereign guardians of our voice. Today's lesson does not end with the sunset. The consciousness you have awakened about the impact of your words is a tool you will carry with you for the rest of your life. Every conversation, from now on, is an opportunity to practice this mastery. Every time you choose the pause instead of the reaction, compassion instead of criticism, healing instead of the cut, you will be honoring the initiation you went through today. Remember, the power you have in your throat is the power to shape your relational reality. Your voice is your magic wand. Use it to build the bonds your soul longs for. Use it to defend your sacred boundaries. Use it to express the truth that only you can bring to the world. The journey to become the owner of your voice is the journey to become the owner of your destiny. If this guide has helped you to realize the weight and the power of your words, anchor this experience. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this today, and write in the comments the declaration of power that seals your journey. I am the owner of my voice. And don't forget to subscribe. The practice of conscious communication is a lifelong path, and we will continue to walk it together.